speakers. So I think I'll kick this off. First of all, I want to show you my prop. My prop for today is that PCCY is a proud member of the state effort to make sure that we remind citizens and elected officials to be advocates for our schools, because they not only work for children every day, but they work for the state and they work for the Commonwealth economy. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. I'm especially honored that so many students from so many school districts in Bucks County are with us today. And we will be introducing them. But these students, their lives have been enriched because there's extraordinary school leaders in their community. So I want to just take a second and do a shout out to the many school leaders that are on this call. Dr. Rose Manini from Bristol Barrow School District, Principal Lindale Davis, Principal Davis from Bristol Township School District, Jason Harris, a good friend of ours from Morrisville Barrow School District, Dr. Charles Lentz from New Hope-Solebury, Donna Holmes from Palisades, Dr. David Bolton from Hamish, the school board president of Perry T.R. Cannon, Dr. Bill Harner, former Secretary of Education, also a good friend of ours in Quakertown, Frank Gallagher, another great friend in Saturday, Dr. Leanne Pacey from the Buckhannon Technical High School, Catherine Strauss from the Little Bucks Institute of Technology, and Jeff Sweda from the Upper County Technical School. So I'm seeing that people are getting a message that I'm choppy and can't hear me. Is that right? Yeah, Tina is saying the audio isn't working.
It's working. It's going in and out.
In and out. So we'll move through. This is the first time we've done a Facebook Live event, so hopefully we'll get better as we go through. I'm not your main speaker, so not hearing me isn't the end of the world. I want to take a moment now to thank Congressman Fitzpatrick for being here with us today. It's not easy being in Congress right now. It's a tough job, and we know that he's up to the task. Also know Congressman Fitzpatrick cares deeply about our schools. So for the opening of this Facebook Live meeting, teen town hall meeting, Congressman, we'd love for you to speak to the teens and the school leaders that are on this call now. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Donna. And thank you to Public Citizens for Children and Youth, the elected officials, the superintendents, school board members, and the students on this Zoom conference. And I recognize quite a few of the students here. Many of you are on my student task force. It's great to see you guys. You all look great. And I always got to do this. Kevin Flynn's going to get mad at me, but I always got to embarrass him. Kevin from Truman. Kevin's dad and I were born one day apart from each other in the same hospital, and our bastinets were literally right next to each other, Flynn and Fitzpatrick. So Kevin, I had to embarrass you. Your dad made me do that, buddy. Good to see you. We all ought to say thanks to Dan O'Brien as well for taking the initiative to reach out to all of us. He's new to PCCY, but has already reached out to me and my colleagues in the Pennsylvania delegation to help move PCCY and our mission forward. So thanks, Dan, for your passion. Keep up the great work. And as we're all working together to both get our community through this health pandemic and also to start to safely phase in economic activity, I'm glad that PCCY brought us all together today to discuss the issues facing our education community. And the education piece of this, by the way, does not get discussed nearly enough. And since the outbreak of COVID-19, school districts across the country are faced with the harsh reality that our public school system is not set up to handle this type of pandemic, and it's something we absolutely need to learn from. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected literally every aspect of our lives, and our community needs help. And for starters, under the CARES Act, Congress allocated slightly over, I believe it was $30 billion for education spending. And if my numbers are right, I think it's 13.2 billion of the just over 30 billion is allocated to something called the Education Stabilization Fund for elementary and secondary school emergency relief to alleviate the financial strain of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, that funding has not yet reached the local school districts. And it will also not be enough to prevent budgetary cuts. And an example of this can be seen here in Lower Bucks County, where the Morrisville School Board is having to consider taking extreme steps to make up, roughly a $1.4 million budget shortfall in the district's annual budget. There's no question that more is needed to help school districts like Morrisville and all the school districts across Bucks County and the neighboring counties to preserve fiscal solvency while providing students with the quality education they both need and deserve. The funding appropriated by Congress is a start, but it's not going to be it's not going to be enough to help school districts like Morrisville stay afloat. And we need to give all the school districts across our region, across our district and our county, maximum flexibility to access as much of the needed funds as they can to help them stay on track to best support the students, the faculty, and the staff. I've been working with the governor's office over the past few weeks, and I've learned that the Pennsylvania Department of Education has made a similar request to the U.S. Department of Education asking for guidance. So both the U.S. Department of Education and the State Department of Education must act now to ensure that our school districts can provide the best quality of education during these extremely challenging times to protect the jobs of our educators. And since the outbreak, I've had the opportunity to join our Bucks superintendents virtually through these Zoom meetings, and collaboratively every superintendent joined together to send a letter addressing my congressional colleagues, stating the most pressing issues facing our schools. And I was able to circulate that letter on behalf of all 13 Bucks County superintendents to my Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus colleagues that address the top issues. And there were a number of issues that were raised: federally authorized and appropriate dollars for schools, and the need to supplement and not supplant the plans to reopen the schools, continuity of education, school lunch program and aid to families, additional funding for the Homeless Assistance Act, social, emotional, and mental health needs, career tech education, and greater flexibility to use Perkin loans, 21st century community learning centers, level funding for Head Start and Early Head Start, federal and state waivers under the Every Student Succeeds Act. There were a number of these concerns, and they were all great concerns raised by the superintendents. It's why we have these meetings, so the people that eat, sleep, and breathe these issues on the ground can educate the policymakers to make sure this stuff is included in the legislation. So in closing, I just wanted to tell all of our amazing students, it's great to see you. You're all looking really good, and that we are all united in this fight. And we're, as you know, we talk about this a lot in our task force meetings. We're most effective when we all work together. All levels of our government, federal, state, and local, are all working to help our community, and you, our students, and our younger members of our community have a really important role to play here. I always remind you guys of this. I encourage all of you guys to stay engaged with us. Let your voices be heard. And to all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day to all of you. With that, I yield back.
Thank you so much, Congressman. And we're, proud that you're in the Problem Solvers Caucus, given where things are right now. On your side of the aisle, that's the best place to be. I just want to take a moment now to welcome State Senator Steve Santarsiero. The senator has an appropriations hearing that is going to go to the floor momentarily. So we're going to go a little bit out of order. And I do want to, by way of introducing Senator Santarsiero, remind us he was a teacher in Bucks County, and would know that the federal funds that have come already, the $500 million that will shortly go out to the school districts, is $500 million short of what school districts across the state are facing just in less local revenue for the next school year. So Representative Santarsiero, please join us. Hopefully we can hear you.
So Senator Santarsiero is having some audio difficulty right now.
I'm getting in. All right, we'll come back to him. Thank you so much. So let's get to the meat of our conversation today, and that's the conversation with the students. We have asked students from across Bucks County to share with you, your elected officials, parents, and community leaders in Bucks County what they value most in their schools, what they're most concerned that we are going to lose in this crisis and perhaps never replace. So we're going to kick this off with the students who are here today. And I'm going to start with Kevin Flynn. Kevin is a high school student at Bristol Township School District in the Harry S. Truman High School.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. I have my statement here prepared. So these impending budget cuts are, to put it mildly, incredibly unfortunate. They're a byproduct of a disease that no one could have possibly predicted would turn out to be that much of an issue, or as much as it has become. There are many things that do concern me about the looming cuts to the budgets, one of which being how it could affect the various different extracurricular activities in these schools. One activity in particular being marching band, as well as all band-related activities. The school's marching band has always had issues with funding. Many years, the band relies on our incredible boosters, as well as plenty of individual fundraising to attain the funds that are necessary to run. Marching band and band in general has been a major part of my high school life. It helped me grow out of my shell, and it was quite a shell, let me tell you, to find my place and to make plenty of amazing friends. I won't lie, I've taken it for granted quite a bit these last few years, but with a bit of retrospection, it truly has been one of the most important parts of my life. And I would hate it if the incoming classes were to be robbed of such an opportunity to find and better themselves. And of course, I would just like to thank everyone here for the chance to have this kind of a chance to speak on an issue that I think very highly of, and I think very much of. I thank everyone at PCCY, all the representatives that have come, all the fellow students that have come to mention their views. This does mean a lot. And again, I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, the band can be the way you connect to school, and clearly you came out of your shell very well. So thank you so much, Kevin. Kids behind you need that opportunity. Next, we're going to hear from Niji Blay. Niji is a student at the Bucks County Technical High School. Welcome, Niji.
Good morning, everybody. I wanted to say good morning to the honorable members of various legislative bodies, and especially Congressman Fitzpatrick. I thank the public citizens for children and youth hosting this forum. Okay. My name is Niji Blay. I'm a senior at Bucks County Technical High School in the Early Child Development and Early Learning Program, and I plan on attending Bucks this fall to eventually obtain my teaching certification at Kieran University. So what's been difficult for me and my classmates during this period, I have lost the best half of my senior year. The normal stress and tests involved in a typical year were nothing compared to the stress students have now. As a senior, you look forward to walking across the stage at graduation. Now, I may never get that chance to live out that day, but I hope my younger classmates, juniors and sophomores, get to experience a real graduation next year. So what's really been tough, it's the stress of the unknown and how long it's going to last. This is taking a toll
I'm on
on
PCCY.
all of
Can you
us
let me know now?
and students and adults alike. I'm going to get through
I
this.
muted my computer.
I just feel like I'm a strong person, but I know other students may not be as strong. They leave when they return to my school in the fall. They may need extra help when with their schooling and managing their stress and mental health. My school will need the support in providing staff to address these concerns. And like I said, I'm going to be fine. I'll be graduated in college, but I'm really just concerned for my underclassmen. And at Tech, our teachers and school work hard to help us become the future of America in the workforce, especially that in jobs that are deemed essential. In fact, I actually have to continue to work during this pandemic just to help my family stay afloat. But if you could please tell for school and other schools get that up and running and help them by giving them financial support they will need to teach and train the future of America. And I would just like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to voice my concern. Thank you.
Niji, thank you so much. I will say we had some connection issues, and we're going to post every one of the students wrote up their comments, so we will be posting them. So thank you, Niji. And I apologize. I don't know, maybe there's too many people on, and as I said, this is the first time, but let's struggle through this a little bit because the student voices are so important. And Niji's point about the extra help that kids will need when they return to school in September is something all of our schools are really concerned about having enough resources to support. The next student we want to hear from is Sophia Daneka from William Tannen High School in Centennial. So Sophia.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Cooper. I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I really, really appreciate it because it wasn't until I was asked to say something that I was forced to really think about how much publication has benefited my life. I grew up in a pretty closed-minded community, and there wasn't.
I mean, there's a ton of representatives there.
And there wasn't much opportunity for self-advancement, at least in the traditional sense. So it wasn't until I transferred into a public school that I became introduced to the sort of marketplace of ideas where I was encouraged to have a lot of in-depth conversations and was really challenged in some of the best of ways. I kind of came into school thinking that once I turned 18, I'd move to Kentucky with my family and get a job in whatever was easiest. I just didn't realize that there were legitimate options out there for me. And it wasn't until I had some really amazing teachers and classes and participated in some really cool programs that I was introduced to a career path that I find best suits my skill set. I mean, never in a million years would I have thought that I'd be going to college in DC for international affairs, and yet here I am filling out loan applications. And that's all thanks to the programs and opportunities that's built into our public education system. And the biggest thing for me was that it wasn't just left at that. Sure, my teachers helped me figure out what I was good at, hone my skills, but notably they also made sure that I had ample opportunity to gain experience in the field. And I knew that if I wanted to get involved, I always could. And I think that this is incredibly, incredibly important, especially for my younger peers. And as the focus continues to shift towards more experience-driven learning. So I hope that everyone keeps that in mind, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
Sophia, I really appreciate that you made the point that it's more than what happens in classes, and it's the experience. And the first thing to go in budget cuts are the kinds of experiences that really round out the education. Good luck in college. Thank you so much. Kelly Meinert is from the Central Bucks East High School. Kelly, we'd like to hear from you.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Kelly Meinert, and I'm a current senior at Central Bucks High School East. And today I just wanted to talk about the impact that my school teachers, counselors, coaches, and support staff have had on my life. I'd be lying if I said that high school was easy for me, but my teachers all went out of their way to make sure that my school was always a safe place for me. And when things weren't going well, my guidance counselor would pull me out of class just to make sure that I was doing okay. When I struggled with AP Calculus last year, my teacher would email me after a difficult class to ask if I wanted to stay after school to get some extra help. Before our biggest game of the year, my soccer coach wrote each of us seniors a personal handwritten note that made all of us cry. And if I ever doubted my abilities, I would remember the kind words that my 8th grade English teacher told me about my ability to succeed. I hold on to these memories and cherish them all because they've impacted my life in ways that I never could have imagined. I owe everything to all of my teachers, and for me, the worst part of this whole pandemic is that I won't get to say a proper goodbye. With my story, I would like for it to be known that should funding become an issue in the near future, I hope and pray that these individuals who give so much of themselves for their students are protected. It is also imperative that my school is still able to hire the best teachers available because these people can change the lives of their students and their value can never be overstated.
That was just beautiful and so to the point of sharing the fears that we have about the extraordinary support you had from counselors, your teachers, and what you hope other kids behind you can get. So thank you so much. Savannah Pinto is from the Middle Bucks Institute of Technology. Savannah.
Good morning, everyone. I am a sophomore at Central Bucks West and Middle Bucks Institute of Technology studying cosmetology, and I would like to thank everyone for this wonderful opportunity. The COVID-19 virus was quick to impact lives all over Bucks County, and a part of that is the limitations put on students' education. Students were abruptly removed from the resources Middle Bucks and schools across the Commonwealth provide. At Middle Bucks, our programs prioritize hands-on learning. As a cosmetology student, no less than half of my time spent there was experiential and involved moving around, working on other classmates, staff and community members, and/or on a mannequin. The online learning has greatly impacted how students get their education. Reading from an online textbook and watching clips of what we should be doing in the classroom is not nearly as beneficial. Our teachers are providing as much as they can without hands-on or laboratory components. I was hesitant to come to Middle Bucks, and I handed in my application way past the deadline. I got lucky enough to have been accepted. I truly think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I found my passion and my career goal. At Middle Bucks, they create so many opportunities for students to get ahead of the game with both technical and employment skill development. Being able to work towards our future this early on in life is incredible. This pandemic has just taken so much away from students. As a result, we need your support to provide funding to ensure resources are provided to make this experience as effective as possible. Funding will provide technology and internet to classmates who do not have it, will help implement innovative instructional practices and delivery methods, and it will provide supports for any students with social, emotional, mental health, and special educational needs. We need our learning to be as experiential as possible and a return to a new normal as quickly as possible. The economic crisis makes an even further case for the importance of a pipeline for employment in key industries we are studying. They include healthcare, STEM, manufacturing, construction, transportation, distribution, and logistics. I would like to thank you again for considering my thoughts on how and why it would be beneficial to all students to receive your support and funding during these challenging times. We can continue to fill the skills gap in Pennsylvania with your support. Thank you.
Okay, I might nominate Savannah for a president of the United States. That was just so beautiful. Thank you so much. Because you're thinking about the future and what this all means. So I really, really appreciate your comments. And the stark contrast learning online has presented does not quite fulfill the full spectrum of what's needed to teach our children. Maura Lewis is with us from the Morrisville High School. Maura.
Hello, how is everyone today? I just want to start off by saying my name is Maura. I attend Morrisville High School and I'm a senior. So the first thing I want to start off with is just by saying that education is an investment and is not a luxury. Coming from a very small community, and the way our community is family oriented, so everyone is a family in our community, and being that I just want to talk about a few things. Coming from a small school in Morrisville, where we have schools that are bigger in our zip code and we don't get that many, we lack a lot of resources that other schools in our county may not, who wouldn't even think about having to worry about. So having cuts like all athletic programs, electives, and like our music and art program and staff positions is going to affect us even more than what it is now that we lack. Like 70% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. And then we have, like, even with the pandemic and the students having to do work online, there's about 12 to 15 families without internet. So, and not even having computer access to anything. So just imagine that. And then coming into the new school year and you guys taking a lot of opportunities that students that already are lacking, and for them to have even more of a setback is kind of unfair, because when they go to apply to colleges, they have nothing necessarily that can set them apart from other schools that are way more advanced to them and have way more resources for them. And it's kind of unfair, especially from a school. So you're taking away like $1.5 million when there's nothing there for you guys to cut. Like, we're already struggling with the $1.5 billion. So just taking that from us set us back even more. And the experience that our students are supposed to receive, it just wouldn't be the same, and it would be unfair. And they would have to just try 10 times even more harder. Another thing I wanted to talk about is scholarship opportunities and stuff like that. We don't even have that many scholarship opportunities compared to other schools. And that's another reason why I took the initiative at my school to try to get a scholarship for every graduating senior in my class. And I'm trying to raise $25,000 for that. So at least everyone can get $500 to motivate them to at least pay for their enrollment fees and see that people actually do care about them and where they want to go in their future. And it may be tough, it may be hard, but still at the end of the day, people actually do care about them, even though we may not get as much recognition as other schools may get in our county, but people care and people are willing to invest in their education. So that impact alone, I feel like that can reach a lot of people, and what you could help, if you guys can try to lean against the cut, it can help a lot of people, and try to get more resources for schools like Bristol and all these schools in Lower Bucks County and all over, honestly, really, to give them more of an educational experience so they can be set apart and they can be able to persevere and be able to support their families once they get their degree. That would be amazing. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Maura. That's so beautifully said, and I really appreciate you speaking for the school districts who have the least, for the kids who have the least. What an example you're setting, personally raising money to help kids go to college. If that doesn't motivate our elected officials to do what they can to break through the narrative and whatever rhetorical devices people are trying to get us in to cut schools, and say, look, if Maura Lewis can spend money or room resources to help kids go to college, the least we can do is make sure every kid's ready. Kieran Meehan from the Chamonix High School. Kieran, we want to hear from you.
Hello, my name is Kieran Meehan, and I'm currently a junior at Chamonix High School. I'd first like to thank PCCY, Congressman Fitzpatrick, and the other lawmakers in attendance for having me and for this great opportunity. During these difficult times, many of us have asked the question, when will our lives get back to normal? The true answer is never. This pandemic has forever changed the world we live in today and how we look at the world of the future. When we eventually return to school, there will be changes. Some changes we like, and some changes that we may not agree with. But we must collectively come together to support each other. At Neshaminy, we are a close-knit community, and our community outreach goes far beyond the classroom. Whether it be the fundraising events we do to help out our local businesses, or the events that all of our clubs immerse themselves in all year round to overall better the community as a whole. Ensuring funding for our schools is key. Not only does this leave a lasting impact on our school community, but also the community that extends far beyond the walls of our classrooms. Ensuring funding allows for fostered growth, allows students to become productive citizens and lifelong learners. As a son of two educators, I see firsthand every day the impact that teachers make not only in the classroom, but outside as well. Funding also allows for continued social and emotional support in and out of the classroom, whether it be from the continued relationships that are developed on the various sports teams, whether it be from the brand practices or the clubs around our schools. These all play a major role in ensuring the continued development of our students. I'd like my younger brothers to get a chance to experience these great events at our schools. And if funding is not available, these great events that have forever left a lasting impact on my life that have forever allowed me to see the world at a whole new angle may cease to exist. These teams that I've been on, the clubs I participate in, and the classrooms I sit in every day affect how I am as a person, but it wasn't until now that I realized how much I miss these connections. It wasn't until now that I understood the true meaning of you don't realize what you got until it's gone. And I'd like the things that I've experienced to be available for the students who have come after me. I want them to experience that class, that club, that sport. But that's only possible if we ensure the funding of not only our public schools in Bucks County, but across the nation. Thank you.
Kieran, you were beautiful, and I think saying you don't know what you've got till it's gone is probably one of the most memorable comments we'll have today, because you guys are really making the case. Thank you. Maura Campbell from Palisades is with us, and then we have one more student we want to hear from. Maura.
Hi. Palisades High School is located in Upper Bucks, an extremely rural location. We have a total of almost 500 students at our high school. Our district has absolutely no corporate presence in our 100-square-mile radius. Despite our small size, the Palisades School District is truly an amazing place to grow up. I feel blessed that my parents chose to raise me and my siblings in this school district. We have an amazing team of faculty, staff, and administrators who work tirelessly to provide the highest quality education for our students. We are small enough to allow for teachers to have personal relationships with all of their students, and our principal can name almost every student in the hallway. Two of the major goals our district have are very simple. 1, prepare students for their life after high school, and 2, maintain technology standards in order to ensure students are prepared to handle a world that operates so much off of computers. Our school district provides Chromebooks for all of our students. We have an awesome director of technology who works extremely hard to ensure our computers function properly and safely, even in the light of computer viruses and cyber hacks. In order to make sure all students are able to utilize online learning from their homes, our school district installs Wi-Fi modems in the homes of families that are not able to provide this resource for their students. This has all allowed for a very smooth transition to full-time online learning this year. Even though we may be small, our high school offers 17 advanced placement programs. To some larger schools, this seems like not an impressive feat, but in comparison to other schools, this is very impressive. Other schools our size, this is very impressive. Our school does this to support students pursuing higher learning post-high school, but our school also offers support for students planning to enter the workforce or military. We have career pathways to prepare students for specific fields of study: healthcare, engineering, education, business, and global careers. Palisades has been the perfect place for students to begin their education due to the extreme dedication to extramural learning. I know that my peers and I feel completely prepared to take the next step in our lives. Every child deserves access to Palisades' excellent educational program. My only hope is that my younger siblings and students throughout all of Bucks County will continue to be offered the same amazing educational experience that I was so blessed to have.
Thank you so much. And Maura, Palisades is such an oasis. And what you described is so inspiring and stands in stark contrast to what Mawa was pointing out, which is the disparity in Pennsylvania's education system that we hope doesn't get worse during this crisis. We're going to wrap up hearing from our first group of students with Mackenzie Huff from Quakertown Community High School.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to be able to talk. I'm personally very deeply invested in Quakertown's music program, and I have been throughout my middle and high school career. I'm currently in the marching band, varsity singers, women's ensemble, band choir, and a couple others, and I really just can't imagine school without it. Music's the main reason a lot of students are motivated to go to school, and at Quakertown, we're ridiculously lucky to have astounding music teachers who genuinely care about their students. And music's just something like students just can't bear to live without. So it's the foundation a lot of students will use for good grades, new experiences, and bonds that can last a lifetime. Although music is often one of the first things that is cut when things get rough, I just really hope that programs like ours are able to continue for years to come, so the younger students can be fortunate enough at that, as I have been, to be able to have such a positive experience in their lives.
Thank you, Mackenzie. I too hope that we never put your school district. I saw your choir, as many lawmakers did, perform in the Capitol. It was spectacular, a Christmas concert. So there's a lot to be proud of there at Quakertown. Thank you very much to our students. We'd like to take a few minutes to give our state lawmakers a chance to say hello and respond. We do have a few students set up with some questions for our lawmakers. So if the state lawmakers would keep their comments short, there's a set of students who are waiting in the wings to just point some questions on the table, not necessarily for everybody to answer, but to understand what the student questions are. So I'm going to kick it off. Now we have Steve Santarsiero. Senator Santarsiero's back on. I'll start with him, and then we'll work through with the House members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Donna. And asking state lawmakers to keep it short might be the hardest task we have today. But I want to thank you all. I'm sorry that things didn't work out earlier with the connection. But I want to thank PCCY for putting this together, for Donna and Dan, and everyone who has helped get, most importantly, all the students' voices together. Donna Cooper, for those of you who don't know, has been an advocate for education here in Pennsylvania for many, many years. I had the privilege of first working with her when I first got to the state legislature as a state rep during the last couple of years of the Rendell administration. And, ever since I've been in Harrisburg, and it's been a total of 9 years now, it's been a battle over funding for education. I think that has been the kind of the seminal point of our budget controversies every year. And those of us who understand the importance of investing, it is nothing short of a disgrace that Pennsylvania ranks, I think it's 48th now, in terms of all the states, in terms of how much support our state gives to our school districts. And that's a travesty. I really, Maura from Morrisville, I really appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate what you're all doing, but Morrisville, of course, has particular challenges. It's in my district. And just a week ago today, Representative Galloway and Representative Warren and I had a press conference to talk about the need for better funding in Morrisville and to fix the funding formula and to prevent the cuts that you were describing earlier. We need to do better. Every student, not just in Bucks County, but across Pennsylvania, needs to have access to the very best education that we can offer. Our teachers are raring and willing to do it. The state has to step up and provide the resources for that. And I can tell you, as Donna mentioned earlier, as a former teacher, I taught 4 years at Bensalem High School. As a father, and frankly, as the son of a teacher, my dad taught for over 30 years in a district in northern New Jersey. I am absolutely committed to public education and making sure that we do what we need to do to provide you those resources. And I'm really grateful for all of you, all the students who are on today, because your voices are really inspiring. I think it's important for lawmakers to hear and also to see, the real faces behind the numbers, because we can get too caught up sometimes in the numbers in terms of the number of students, the need, but to actually see people in real lives and see how it impacts you is really critical. So I applaud PCCY for putting this together. And for all of you for participating. I'm sorry that I'm kind of actually between two Zoom meetings this morning. Ironically, our appropriations committee is having a meeting, and so I'm kind of going back and forth, but I do want to make myself available to questions that you might have. So Donna or Dan, if you could just reach out to me through text or chat message when it's time for that, I'm happy to participate.
Great, Senator. So just make sure the approps people know that you're busy listening to students about their hearing cuts. So we'll move on to the House now. Thank you so much, Senator Santarsiero. To Representative Davis, thank you for being here today. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tina Davis. I'm in the lower end of Bucks County. I represent Levittown and Croydon and Pendle and parts of Middletown Township. First of all, I want to congratulate you guys for having this. It's awesome. I have to reiterate what Senator Santarsiero said, that, we look at numbers all the time and we're in these budget caucuses and hearings, and just to hear the teenagers talk was so awesome. And I got to say, you were so eloquent, and your fortitude and resolve shows through. So I want to thank the students from my 3 schools the tech school in the Bucks County Tech, Truman, and the Chamonix. You were awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Davis. You've been a great supporter. Representative Stats, we're eager to hear from you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Well, good morning, everyone, and a special welcome to the students. That truly was a good exercise to go through and hear your thoughts. Just some background. I went to or through Central Bucks School District. I attended Paul W. Kutz, Lenape, and CB East. So Kelly, go Patriots. And my sons, who are now 26 and 24, went through Quakertown School District. So Mackenzie, go Panthers. And so we are really big fans of the public school system here in Bucks County. So that said, we're currently going through some obviously challenging times. And perhaps the greatest issue, I believe, in front of residents and our schools during this COVID-19 outbreak is uncertainty. Uncertainty over how this pandemic will change our lives and the way we do things. And that includes our schools. As it's been discussed, look, we already know we'll be dealing with this it's going to be a very difficult state budget this year. And we don't know at this point just how bad it's going to be. I have been reading school officials in other states already talking about cutting staff, programs, extracurricular activities, and no one in Pennsylvania wants to see that. And certainly no one on this call wants to see that. I can also tell you, as a member of the House Education Committee, I will have a role in shaping our education policy, and I am committed more than ever to ensuring a quality education for our students. Lastly, in the last couple years, my House colleagues and I have worked to enhance career and technical education for students, and that work will continue. I know Jeff Sweet is on the in attendance today, and we're all very proud to have Upper Bucks Technical School available to Penn Ridge, Palisades, and Quakertown students. The work they do there is amazing. I've been there on numerous occasions. They do a great job, and they are preparing students with the work skills that will enable them, quite frankly, to secure good family-sustaining jobs. So again, it was great to hear from the students today, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Representative Stats. And I want to say that if you're watching this on Facebook Live or Zoom, Representative Stats is not hiding. His video link wouldn't work. So next time we'll make sure to see his smiling face on this. Thank you so much.
I think he's a little bashful with his new beard.
Oh, that's important.
I wanted to see that.
Dr. Harner, very important.
I even tied it up my office.
Darn. Well, thank you so much. I know that Representative Galloway is on the line with us. I'd love Representative Galloway, please introduce yourself.
Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you to PCCY, the leadership, the students, everybody who came together to make this happen. I'd like to say hi to everybody. You know, I've been going like everybody else this morning. I've been going back and forth between different meetings. I am state representative in the 140th district, which is Lower Bucks County. I represent parts of 5 different school districts: Pennsbury, Bristol Township, Bristol Borough, Neshaminy, Morrisville, and the tech school, which would make it 6. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters that are teachers, 3 in Bristol Township, 1 that just retired from Neshaminy. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on here today, especially to listen to the students. That's not something that we hear every day. I mean, we talk to students, we think about the difficulties. I listened to some of the stories. One was not being able to experience graduation day. And you know, we thought about that. You know, to hear a personal story like that was you know, inspiring. It made you think. The story from the student from Morrisville, something that Brian Fitzpatrick, Steve Santarsiero, Perry Warren, and I are working and have been working on every day and for years now. The difficulties of smaller school districts. I represent both Bristol, borough and Morrisville. So, we understand those difficulties as much as anybody does. But I want to thank, more than anything, I want to thank the students, hearing their stories. First of all, you're talking about some of the best and brightest. These stories were great to hear. Some of them were extremely bright, very sharp. And I would like to hear more of them, to be honest with you. But I would like them to know that whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or independent, you're talking to elected officials here, and we're all from Bucks County. We all care about Bucks County. There is a time and a place. We all fight on election day, but the next day we come together and we work. This is one of the few places in the state, and I think the other people, the other elected officials on this call will tell you the same thing, that we have a common goal. It is Bucks County, and there is a time and a place where we work together, and that may not come through on the television and what you hear nationally, but it is true here. We know each other, we work with each other, and we have a common goal. And that common goal has always been Bucks County, the people of Bucks County, and the students that go to our schools. So I want to thank you all for being here and inviting me. Apologize for switching back and forth from one meeting to another, but thanks for organizing this, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, stick around, because if you have a chance, all the state reps, we're going to extend this so that the students who have time, who have questions, have a chance to pose them. But I don't want to cut off the possibility for the students to hear directly from their state reps. Thank you, Representative Galloway, so much for making the time to go back and forth. And Representative Thomas, we'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Wendy Thomas. I have two school districts, since we're talking about schools, Council Rock and New Hope Salisbury. I'm not going to take up too much time because I do want to hear your questions. I echo what every legislator has said. My colleague, Rep. Galloway especially, we do come together to work together for the best of Bucks County. And I spent 10 years on school board. I would say public education's one of my top issues. Prior, I just got asked the other day what I was doing pre-COVID. I was like, I can't remember, but I was working on getting mental health support into the schools and all the way down K to 12 and down in the elementary and middle school level, as well as in the high school. And if there's time, or maybe Donna or Dan another time, I'd love to hear some of your direct thoughts about mental health and how you've been affected by this, and what you think. Many of you are going to college, but what do you think the impacts were? Because I hear anecdotally from adults, but it's much, much stronger to hear from kids, because you guys tell us how it really is. Adults tend to sugarcoat things, or so you're all laughing, you get it. So I'd love to hear about that topic. I'm happy to stay on and hear the questions from you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Thomas. And yeah, the extraordinary toll that this has taken is so varied across the county, where some students might be in school districts with tremendous access to counselors and mental health supports, and then others are in districts where that's already in short supply. So again, hitting home, Bucks County is prototypical of the disparity in Pennsylvania that we have to make sure doesn't get worse in this crisis. Representative Casey Tomlinson, the newest member of the Bucks County delegation, I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Casey Tomlinson. I'm the newly elected state rep here in Bensalem. I'm also a graduate of Bensalem High School. I was recently appointed to the House Children and Youth Committee, so I'm really happy to be here today and hear all your thoughts and concerns. Education is certainly one of the most important topics to us here in Bucks County. I just want to thank PCCY for the opportunity to be here and hear the concerns from students, not only in my district, but neighboring districts. So thank you so much for having me. And to all the seniors, I'm sending you virtual hugs. I know that this time is super difficult. I can't imagine, but we're here for you and we're ready to listen. So hang in there.
Thank you so much. We'll have a lot of work to do together. Let's talk with Representative Wendy Ullman.
Okay, I think we're unmuted here. Thanks so much for putting this together. It's incredibly valuable to hear your articulate voices, kids. This is something that we must keep in our minds because this will be a really important part of the budgetary process. I come to the whole process of education from basically a lifetime. I taught middle school, I taught high school, and then for 30 years, I taught community college. So education is part of my DNA. And actually, I think we're all really we're mindful of the enrichment that high school has for all of you folks. I represent the largest district in the county, so I have 4 high schools. I have Central Bucks, I have Palisades, I have parts of Quakertown, I have parts of Penn Ridge. I have many of my students are at the Middle Bucks and many are at the Upper Bucks, and of course we have the IUP. So I have a lot of disparate parts of our somewhat disparate county. And you've really represented the unique needs of our high school, but I do want to say that we all need to be mindful of some of the real vulnerabilities. And this would be students who have social, emotional, special needs. Maintaining the incredibly important programs we have to make sure that their educational needs are met will be critical. These young folks are particularly struggling right now because distance learning is not something that's really solving some of their educational shortfalls. We need to be really mindful of pre-K and early childhood ed. These kids are at critical periods, and we all know how valuable this is to making sure that these kids are learning ready, learning at appropriate levels. So there's a lot of different pieces that come under the big umbrella of public education. But I hope that we're all united across the state, as we are, I think, united here in Bucks County, to make sure that the educational needs of every student, and maybe especially those who have unique needs, are going to be met as we make some really difficult budgetary choices. But thank you for bringing us all together, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you, Representative Ullman. And, you know, speaking to the needs of the youngest children and those with special needs, I think in general, what we have observed in this process is that what we thought might be a panacea, cyber education, whether some of the students spoke to the fact that that doesn't actually work as simple as we think, whether it's for the best and the brightest that are here today, kids with special needs, or our youngest learners. And so they certainly make the case that, you know, traditional schools is where it happens, and where Savannah made the best point, it builds the future. So we want to take one more comment from Representative Perry Warren, who just joined us. Thank him so much for being here. Representative Warren, please introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you. I'm Perry Warren, and I actually didn't just join you. I've been on, but as Representative Galloway said, we're doing multiple meetings at once. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I have 5 kids, and public education is paramount in our family and to me as a legislator. They all went to public schools, and the youngest 2 of whom are here attending college classes. And as we divide up the rooms in the house, I get the family room. So that's from where I'm speaking. The education is the top priority in my home, always has been. When I first got out of college, I taught high school social studies for several years, and before I went on and went to law school. But education is critical. One of my daughters is in graduate school, intending to be a teacher next year. And as Representative Galloway said, and I mentioned at the beginning, we are on other meetings at the same time. My headphones here. The other meeting is a budget and appropriations meeting, during which we have spoken primarily about health funding and education funding, recognizing how critical education funding is and the challenges that we're going to be facing in this upcoming budget year, and that all our school districts are going to be facing in this upcoming budget year. I represent 3 school districts, all of them shared with other state representatives. Morrisville and Pennsbury, I share with Representative Galloway, and Council Rock, I share with Representative Thomas. And I was able to listen to all of Maura's comments about the challenges that Morrisville in particular is facing, and we are working with Senator Santarsiero, Representative Galloway, Congressman Fitzpatrick to work to address the Superintendent Harris, who's on the call as well, to address Morrisville's specific needs, and they are significant and substantial this year. But all of our school districts, through increasing state funding, really we go out to Harrisburg and emphasize that education, public education, is absolutely critical, and it's the fabric of our community here in Bucks County and in the part that I represent. And it's great to hear from the students. And I think we all recognize the challenges that you have faced this year. And it is incumbent upon us as legislators and leaders in the community to make this up to you in the future, to enhance your educational opportunities. And we will be working to do that. So I thank you all for joining us today. And I look forward to continuing to hear from you as the question and answer period continues in this call. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One of the benefits of having such a strong cohesion in Bucks County is that whether it's on early childhood, where your district attorney has been a statewide advocate to expand pre-K access and high quality early childhood education, or at the mental health level where County Commissioner Masiglia has been very active on those issues. We're very happy today that Bucks County County Commissioner Bob Harvey's on. You know, the county is not a direct, the county is not a direct funder of schools, but counties can enable great things for schools, whether it's how they support their community college so that the kind of education that Nija talked about, where she's going to become early childhood worker, or support the mental health needs of our children through the county mental health block grants, and certainly for children who are on the foster care caseload, the county plays a critical role in enabling them to succeed in school. So we're so happy that Bucks County Commissioner Bob Harvey's here. Please introduce yourself.
Donna, Commissioner Harvey right now is having some technical difficulties, so he will be trying to.
Sorry, I missed your text. Thank you, Dan. So we'll all get better at this, and the world will get better at this. But what we really want to get better at is schools. I'm going to respond to one of the questions that came in the chat, and then turn this over to Taha Ahmad, a student from Ben Salem, who has another question. Question was, what role does the state play in school funding? And just for all the students and parents who are on this call, the majority, 70 to 80% of the funding for school districts across the state come from the state government. The federal government plays a small role, only about 7% of funding. But in this crisis, the federal government can compensate for the shortages that the state can't make up for. Because what happens is the federal government does not have the same constraints as the state government. They do not need to have a balanced budget. They can generate a deficit in the period of crisis. And that's why the $500 million that the school districts have received is great, but it is the federal government that is most able to step to the plate to close what is likely to be a $1.5 to $2 billion gap between shortfalls in state funding and local funding for our school districts. So by and large, in typical days, it is the state that we look to, and we know these state representatives, as they've said, will do everything they can in the budget process to make sure they do no harm to our school districts. But the state budget is in severe deficit as a result of COVID, and the only place that can spend more revenue that it brings in on an annual basis is the federal government. So a lot weighs on Congressman Fitzpatrick's shoulders. I would like to now ask Taha Ahmad, she's from Ben Salem High School, if she would like to ask the first question.
Sorry, I'm a dude first. But thank you for having my question. I appreciate taking your time out of your day. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to listen. But I want to say, especially for like lower income schools right now, many students like across Bucks County, they lack like reliable internet access, electronic devices to do schoolwork on, and other like school educational resources. So like, how would you be able to ensure that every school, especially those that already lacked funds before this epidemic, but especially now they do, how would you ensure that they now would have the funds necessary to provide adequate education and resources to their students? It's
So
quite a hard time right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Taha, and I appreciate you gently telling me that you're a dude. I would love to hear from any state representative that has any thoughts on how the disparity is going to play out in this budget process and what we can do to protect that.
Donna, this is Steve. I'll take a stab at it. Taha, it's always an issue, and one of the things that we need to make sure we do at the state level is drive more money out in a more equitable way. But I also think what we have to do is just raise the overall spend, right? The challenge we have now is that we are looking at a loss in revenue, not taking into consideration the fact that the payment of taxes has been extended out until July 15th, because that has an impact on our budget too. But we're looking at a loss in revenue of between $1.5 billion and $2 billion. And then we have a structural deficit of $1 billion on top of that. That's a problem that's been brewing for a long time that we need to deal with. To Donna's point before, and she and I agree with this. We are what if your economics teachers might have taught you is Keynesian economics, that when there is a downturn, government needs to spend to stimulate the economy. That's what President Obama did back in 2009 and 2010. And people forget that stimulus, which is actually very small compared to what's happened even so far in this crisis, was also intended to help bail the states out, because there was a recognition that, like what Donna just said, just as the states can't go into debt, they can't print money, and so they needed help from the federal government. We are in that position again. We've gotten a lot of help from the federal government so far for COVID-related issues, about $4.3 billion that we're going to be able to use for that. But that money is restricted to COVID-related issues. Now, some of that could conceivably be put toward education, depending upon how it's structured. But I think what Speaker Pelosi is talking about right now in the Congress is doing another stimulus, this time, among other things, aimed at helping states and municipalities specifically. And as to deal with budget shortfalls is to deal with funding for things like education on top of what Congress has already done. So I think that's really necessary. I think we're going to need that, frankly, if we're going to not only balance our budget, but also try to address the inequities and put more money into education, because it's really critical. So this is a trying time for everybody. There's no question about that. People are out of work, businesses are shuttered. We're trying to, save lives. But we have to make sure that we're keeping our eye on the ball for the long term as well. And that means continuing to invest in education. And that's why I think, that type of investment from the federal government is going to be pretty critical.
Thank you so much. And I will say, Taha, one of the things that has happened in the past when there's been deep cuts to education, they hit the poorest districts first because they're most dependent on state aid. So right. One of the reasons we wanted to have this call and include people from across the county was the importance for all the lawmakers, regardless of what school district they represent in the county or school districts, to understand that the poorest school districts will bear this brunt the worst. And certainly that will also be true as they lose local revenue. And that will put things like extracurricular activities like band, on art programs and clubs that you all spoke to at risk dramatically. It might undermine the availability of full-day kindergarten, availability of pre-K, and certainly decrease access to quality educational programs. So Taha, I hope you will talk to other students about the question that you asked and get them to keep asking that question. I'm going to now—
Donna, can I just add something real quick, because I've got to have to hop off in just a second. The other thing, Taha, and all the students, you all need to understand, when we have budget deficits, and Donna knows this well, her experience, one of the first things that happens is people say, well, we should be cutting. And one of the first things that gets cut is education, where there's an attempt to cut education. Education and human services, those are usually the first two things that, because they make up such a large part of our budget, they want to cut. You have to speak out. And now is the time to be speaking out against that. We could be doing things like criminal justice reform that would save us at the state level a lot of money that we spend currently on prisons, for example. There are a lot of other things we could be doing aside from getting money from the federal government, as I just discussed, that we could do to save money and then redirect that to education. So make sure that your voice is being heard. This is a critical time, this next month and a half or so, before we get to the end of our state fiscal year, which is June 30.
Thank you so much. And it really does speak to the need to think about how you as student leaders get other student leaders to speak up so that the kids behind you continue to get at least as good an education as you got. One of the people wrote in, we're not talking about just eliminating full day kindergarten, we're talking about eliminating kindergarten. How crazy is that? In the late 90s, we finally made a commitment in this state to move to full day kindergarten in districts and began funding that. And now we're going to be stepping back. That's just an unacceptable reality in the poorest districts in the state. And so I'm very happy to have Gianna. And Gianna, I'm not even going to try and say your last name, from Bristol High School, talk with us, ask a question. We'd love to hear your question.
Thank you. I'm Gianni. I'm a student at Bristol High School. Thank you to all the state representatives and senators for joining us, and thank you to the PCCY for having me. My question is, my district, Bristol, the Bristol Borough School District, it's very low income. Going back to the 2008 recession, a lot of our programs that many of the students here are concerned about losing, marching band, arts programs, woodshop, we've already lost them. We don't have that much left to sacrifice. So my biggest concern with the outcome of the pandemic and these expected budget cuts, which sound like they're going to happen, isn't so much as what programs are we going to lose. I'm fearing for the future of my school and whether it's going to be financially viable to sustain itself and whether it can stay open. So my question to the state representatives and Congressman Fitzpatrick is, what are you doing? What if these budget cuts happen, and it sounds like they are going to happen and be quite significant? What steps and measures are you going to take to ensure that school districts like mine aren't shuttered for good and forced to combine with a larger one?
That's an open question to any of our lawmakers to offer their feedback to.
Donna, if I can, I mean, if it's okay, if I could say something as Senator Tomlinson's chief of staff.
Sure, Ryan.
It's Bristol Borough is a school district, is in our district. Gianni, I think what we're going to do is work tirelessly, and as the other state rep said and state senator said, we've always worked together in a bipartisan fashion to support education funding. I think last year it was the highest I think we've ever had. Is it as high as it should be? I think we're always going to try and increase that as much as we possibly can. It is a constant push and it is a constant fight. It's a fight that Senator Tomlinson has been leading the charge. And Donna, Donna was shaking her head. She knows Tommy's been fighting on this for quite some time. And it's something that we're always going to continue to do and always try and push. I don't think anybody knows what it's going to look like, where we're at with things. And that is extremely concerning. That being said, is you have, I think, not just Senator Tomlinson's word, but everyone else's word is that we're going to fight like heck, to make sure your school districts are protected and helped out. And if I could just follow up real quick, Taha, if there's any chance, Don, if you could send my information to Taha or Taha's information to me, I'd love to talk to him. He's a Ben Salem kid. I'm a Ben Salem kid, class of 2009. So I'd love to follow up on some of the talks your points you were making earlier, Taha. That's it real quick. And Sam Lee's on the call too. He's our superintendent here in Ben Salem. Somewhere on there I saw his name, but thanks, Donna.
Thank you, Ryan. So let me just say that one of the superintendents has put into the chat that in addition to the suggestions that Senator Santarsiero suggested as ways to find money in the state budget, we certainly have opportunities through charter reform that could generate significant savings for school districts. And I know that Frank Gallagher would love to speak to that. And I'm thinking maybe we could organize something in addition to today's conversation about what are the ways to save money so that school districts avoid cuts. But I hope that Frank Gallagher and the others on this call will appreciate that we really want to use this time to get the questions from the students. So I'm going to ask Emma Torak from William Tennant High School in Centennial to ask the next question. Emma, are you on?
Yeah.
Are you?
Can you hear me?
Talk up a little bit more, Emma.
Okay. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. So some of the best parts about public education are all of the programs and sports. If there had to be cuts due to issues with funding, what would you cut first, second, and third, and why?
That's a tough one. And I wonder whether there's a lawmaker who wants to venture an answer to that.
How about I take that one, Donna?
Thank you.
All right. I think the answer, Emma, is how about no cuts? I think that's what the goal's got to be. And I want to address, I know Taha, Gianna. And Gianna's a Quattrochi, by the way, the famous Quattrochi family from Bristol Borough. And Emma, I'm going to kind of wrap all three of your questions into one. The answer is there shouldn't be any cuts because the bottom line is that the school districts should not be in a financial situation where they need to make cuts. That's where we got to work collaboratively. And as Donna pointed out, the Fed's got to step up here. There's no question about it. You heard the talk about deficit spending. The Feds have been pretty good at deficit spending over the years, but this is a time where they really need to step up. And with the Fed interest rate being lowered to next to zero, now's a time where we need to make sure that any of the school districts that are in a financial gap or a budgetary gap solely because of COVID and because of the loss of revenues that have resulted from COVID, we got to find a way to fill that gap. So if everybody's doing their job on all levels of government, and that's why I said at the outset that this is the time we should always be doing this, but especially now that the federal, state, county, and municipal and borough governments need to all work hand in glove, work together to figure out who can push what lever at what level of government to make sure that no school district, especially the ones that are having particularly hard times funding their school districts, like Bristol Borough, like Bristol Township, like Morrisville. Now, all the school districts are in a tough spot, but there were some districts that had inherent challenges even before COVID-19. So I think the answer, Emma, is if everybody's doing their job, our goal is that no school district has to be forced to make those god-awful decisions. We asked everybody to hunker down in order to slow the spread and get past this health pandemic safely and as safely as possible. It then follows that if everybody's doing that which we are asking them to do, we can't financially punish them for that. And that includes the school districts. So that's what we need to figure out, and that's going to be on us to do it.
Thank you so much. Perfect answer. You get an A+ in your civics class today, Representative Fitzpatrick, because that's the sentiment that we all need to have. One of the questions that's come in on the chat is, can school districts share information so they can collaborate and save money together? And I will tell you that the Bucks County Intermediate Unit is extremely effective at bringing together school districts to think about ways to save money. But what we're talking about here is core activities. Teachers, extracurricular activities, mental health services. 70 to 80% of every school district budget is basically those costs. And with a $1.5 to $2 billion possible hit on people's budgets, yes, we can save money together by improving transportation services and school meal efficiencies and things like that. But the scale of the cuts that we are about to be visited upon by school districts requires not only creative saving ideas, but substantially more resources. I'd like to talk to Animish, who is Animish, who's from Central Bucks. Please go ahead. And I know you've been out there going like this sometimes, so you've got a lot to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Hey, I'm Animish Shinetti from Central Bucks High School West to represent. So I'm happy that Maura talked about the college resume and the mental illness thing. That was a part of my context for my original question, but I'm happy she finished that, and we got an response from our legislators. I would like to start off with an example of my last year. We had a chemistry class. Okay, usually in Central Bucks West, there's enough, one teacher, the class sizes are enough for each teacher to know everyone and their strengths and weaknesses generally. But last year, I think it was the one instance where it was Miss Mahal's class, chemistry, and it was on the edge, like 35, 31 for one teacher. It was a little tough, and I saw to perform well in that class, the kids that generally performed well were the ones that had time to come to the review sessions after and keep giving in time. But there was a person named Sean. There was a question that no one could answer in one class, but he came out and answered, and we were like, oh my God, this guy's the next Michael Jordan of chemistry or something. But he did not do well overall by the end, because I don't think he had enough time to put in, and it was too large for him to, he was more of a, I don't want to say introvert, but yeah, I would say introvert in this example. So my question for our legislators is, I think quality education was mentioned before by someone, but don't you think that teachers and students won't be able to do their best if they're limited by financial capabilities? And that shouldn't be on the same ground, if you know what I'm talking about. I wanted to hear your response. Education, in my opinion, should be valued over financial restraints. I know this is a tough time, but with that question out there, I also like to say that I hope we all understand that we are deciding between helping the present economy or the future economy, which our high schoolers will be working in. So valuing between those two. And that's my question. And I had a creative solution idea. It just popped in my head. Sorry, I'm going on forever now. Instead of being in classrooms where you're constricted, 6 feet apart may not be easily accessible, why don't we save electricity costs for each school by staying outside, and everyone is 6 feet apart, and every teacher can have a loudspeaker, and we do that. I was just thinking, but yeah, that's it.
I think, Anamish, you're exactly right to be thinking about solutions. All of those solutions that are about safety are also going to cost school districts money. So you talked about a class with 35 kids, and if that class kids need to be 6 feet apart, well, that's a very large room, or it's an unwieldy room to instruct in. So the implications of COVID, again, in districts that are already stressed, or even the wealthiest districts in the county, are going to be very, very hard. But Anamish, I think you raised the bigger point, which is, where do we value? Do we value the experience of today or the investment in the future? And I'll open that up to a lawmaker if anybody has a comment, although I think it is the mantra of what we've heard so far. Is there any lawmaker that would like to respond to Anamish?
This is Wendy Thomas.
Go ahead.
Wendy and Wendy, right?
Yeah.
I'll say briefly, and then Representative Ullman, feel free. I think the hard part as a legislator is not, for me, is not choosing between education and something else. Education pretty much wins. It's when you had, let's call it $100 last year, and you've got $95 this year, and you don't have the ability, as we've talked about, like the feds do, to go into endless debt to get back up to the $100. I think that's the hard financial part. I agree with the senator. There are places we can cut, so we can fill that. Making those choices are very hard, and getting consensus around those ideas is very hard. I do believe that generally, when it comes to education in Bucks County, we're together. But I think that's more what at the state level we're facing. It's not, we had 100 last year, we have 102 next year. Do we put $2 into education or somewhere else? We're not even going to have the 100 we had last year. And I think the people who came on this call, education, we know it's the future. You guys have said some great quotes. I love to use them, but you know, think like the financial stability of today or the financial stability of tomorrow with the education was a great comment. So we're with you. We're going to have to work hard on this. But that's kind of what we're facing, just if that helps.
Thank you so much. Representative Ullman, if you should wrap up quickly, then I'm going to tell people next steps.
Yeah, I'm just going to wrap this up quickly. I think we all agree that education is critically important. The budgetary problems we're facing are going to be brutal, but I think everyone here puts education front and center in terms of the absolute necessity to protect it. And I do want to open up a topic which I don't have the answer to. In Bucks County, I think we share a value for education and what it means to fund it, but we also represent every kid in this Commonwealth. And we know that, for example, the disparity between what education you folks have and the education of your classmates or your cohort a few short miles away in Philadelphia is night and day. And this is part of our responsibility to represent every child. So we have our work set out for us.
So Congressman Fitzpatrick, before I close the meeting, I want to thank you so much for being here. If you have any parting comments, we would love to hear that now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Donna and Dan. Thank you so much for putting this together. And to the kids, great to see you. You're looking great. Amish, our last speaker, he's also on our task force. And to Amish, just to answer your question briefly, you know, there's outlays of money that are expenses and there's outlays of money that are investments. And there's a big difference. And policymakers need to differentiate between the two. And the top two things that come to mind when you talk about outlays that are investments, number one, by a mile, is education. And number two is infrastructure expenditures. When you're looking at an investment versus an expenditure, an investment means that a dollar spent now is either going to result in increased revenue or decreased costs down the road. Now with infrastructure, it makes sense because that's a project. You're investing in projects. With education, you're investing in people. And that's the most important asset that we have. So, you know, you're lucky to have a lot of people that really care about this issue. And we're going to continue to work very, very hard. I want to thank all the kids for staying engaged. I am off mute, by the way, aren't I?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we heard everything. Yeah.
It's not showing on my screen yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we heard you.
Somebody had, just to close it up, one of the students had mentioned earlier that you don't know what you got until it's gone, and how true that is, you know, and I just want everyone to make sure that we take time to take care of ourselves. You know, this is hard on a lot of people. It's hard on our seniors. It's hard on our immunocompromised citizens. It's hard on our frontline workers, our healthcare workers, our police, our firefighter, our medics. But make sure that you take time for yourself, for your mental health, your emotional well-being, and take this time to appreciate the things that sometimes we didn't take the time to appreciate before, because our lives are moving so fast. And, you know, hopefully when this is over, you know, we don't take for granted a handshake with a stranger, full shelves in the store, conversations with neighbors, a crowded theater, a Friday night out, you know, the school rush every morning, random coffee with a friend, whatever it may be. Take the time to really appreciate those things. And while we're home, you know, rebuild relationships with your family members and friends, and do a lot of Zooming. I never even heard of Zoom until 2 months ago, but now it's Zoom morning, noon, and night. Make sure you use that as a tool to stay in touch with people. God bless you to all the kids, and we're here for you. So you know where to find me if you want to connect.
Thank you so much. So in closing, let me just say I have another prop. In 2000, I completed my census form. In 2010, I completed my census form. In 2020, I completed my census form. The money that the federal government just released to school districts was allocated to schools based on the 2010 census. So if your family has not completed their census form, if you know people who have not done that, they are disadvantaging Bucks County. They are disadvantaging your school district every year going forward. So please, number one, make sure you have completed the census. Number two, it's unclear when the state will complete its budget process, but it should happen before the end of June 30th. And before June 30th, might happen a little bit sooner. We will be in touch with you when we feel like Your lawmakers are doing a great job on your behalf. We will tell you. When we feel like they need a little bit more emotional support from you to do better on your behalf, we will tell you. We need you to respond. This is the beginning of a very protracted set of intense negotiations at the federal and state level. We know how strongly the Bucks County delegation feels in support of education. We urge you all today to make sure anything you heard here, you share with both of your US senators, because they too carry your voice to the table. And so we are just so grateful to all of the lawmakers who were here with us today. I want to say that Alexander Kaiser, Jason Turner, Joseph Locke, Mia Chuma, and Gianna Quigley also have questions that we're going to collect today from them and send to you. And we will follow up on some of the bigger conversations that were raised today and invite you back to this conversation so we can keep the focus on education as this budget process comes to a close. And somebody asked, do you have to be a citizen to fill out the census? Absolutely not. It counts the number of people who live in the United States of America. So I want to thank you very much for being here today. I am so honored to have listened to you as students in Bucks County. I learned so much, we all did, and we want to fight together with you to make sure the kids behind you continue to get a great education. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. How do I leave?